outside and feeling like really like these streets are our streets. They're not like the tech oligarch street. They're not the police street. It's like they're it's streets for the people who live here, for the people who care about here. What did you just say? What did you just say? I thought that's what you said. Because you know what happened here? I mean, I know if you're here, you know something about this story, which is that I don't think it was a hot August night, but it was an August night in 1966 when this cafeteria here, former Compton's Cafeteria, was a place that people in the neighborhood would just come and hang out. It was the chill out zone. It was the clean, well-lighted place for cheap food in the middle of the night. A lot of trans women, a lot of street kids, a lot of hustlers would hang out here, and the cops would come down here just to harass them because they thought they could harass those people with impunity and get away with it because nobody cared. You know, when I think about the way that trans women in particular were treated here, there's a woman I interviewed in the film that my friend Victor Silverman and I made, Screaming Queens, about the riot here at Compton's Cafeteria. The late Amanda St. James, you know, she talks about, she says, like, we'd be sitting here, people would just come in and say, like, you, and you, like, come with us. The cops would, like, throw people in the back of the patrol car. They would force them to have oral sex. They would drive them around all over the city for hours. They would take them to jail. They would strip them in front of the other prisoners. They would shave their heads. They would put them in solitary confinement. That was just routine abuse that trans women experienced from the cops in this city because they thought they could get away with it. They would get arrested for cross-dressing, as one of the interviewees said. It's like if we had the buttons on the wrong side of our blouse, they would call it cross-dressing. You know, one woman said, it's like, I remember this one cop who hated me with a passion. You know, it's like every time he'd see me, he'd say, get in the paddy wagon. I'd say, I just got my hamburger. She'd say, eat it Monday when you get out, right? That is the way trans people were treated here, right? And one night in August of 1966, they had finally had enough. The cops came in to raid the place. You know, it was planned, and they came, and that night, a table full of queens resisted arrest. One of them picked up a cup of coffee, threw it in the face of the officer who was trying to arrest her. He stumbles backwards, falls over a table. There was another cop there pulling out his nightstick. Somebody picked up one of those big sugar shakers, boom, clocked him in the head, took him out. Right? And with that, the place erupted. It's like people were just, it's like they were just finally fed up with everything that was happening. And then what we learned from eyewitnesses was that the fighting started on the inside. People broke the plate glass windows out. They were pouring out into the streets. And then they heard more police cars coming. And it wasn't enough time for the cops who were inside, who like gotten the worst of it, to call in for reinforcements. It was planned. It was a planned raid. There were two cops who were coming in to get one person that they wanted to arrest.
Fuck the cops!
What did you say?
Fuck the cops!
There we go. What happened after that is the police are pouring in. There's, you know, this was the heart of the trans sex work ghetto right here. Half a block in every direction, down to Market Street, in both directions, a block that way, a block that way. There were probably estimate of like 300 or 400 trans people who lived on this, right around this intersection in the 1960s. They lived in these hotels, they tricked in these bars, they worked in these bars. And when the riot happened here, people poured into the streets, people poured out of the hotels, they poured out of the other bars. And there were probably, best estimate, like 300 or 400 people fighting in the street with the police right here, right? Police cars were vandalized, newsstand was set on fire, and as the best closest in time description that we have found of the riot. The person who described it said, and general havoc was raised that night in the Tenderloin, right? What's that?
Give me the microphone.
I'll give you the microphone in just a sec. Is that all right? Cool. All right. So when we remember the riot, let's just remember that there are these moments where it's like members of our community have taken to the streets and we have won. We have won, right? It's like, why was this riot forgotten for so long? I have my theories. And one of them is that the cops lost that night and they asked the newspapers not to cover it. I really think that's what happened, you know? And so just because something is not well documented doesn't mean it didn't happen. This event lives on in the memory of the people who lived in this neighborhood. People talked about it for years. They wrote it down. And then because there was a gay archive here in the city that collected all of this material, those traces of people's actions to liberate themselves, they left a mark. And we found it later, and we've been telling that story. And I think the most important thing that we can do in this moment, in our times where fascism is real in this country, is that we just need to remember, like the people who rioted here in 1966, we need to live now in a way that will leave a mark that people in the future will find, and they know that we were strong, we were here, we resisted, we lived the lives that we want to live. And we left something for people in the future to find. So get out there and do what you need to do.